We're back talking horse racing, the greatest gambling game in the world. You're just going to get me here for a minute. I have to do a little explaining of what we're about to listen to. It's Emily and I talking to Edward Deicke, who just won the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. And if you have followed Emily and I for any length of time, you know that we love our Eddie D. We didn't know who Eddie D was. Not actually his name. Doesn't actually go by Eddie, but you see him on the leaderboard. He's Eddie D in our little world. So Emily and I started talking, doing a spaces. Emily was doing a spaces about Oaklawn and kind of came on and said, if anybody wants to come and talk to me, come on and do this. Otherwise, I'm just going to hang up and not going to do this anymore. So I, being at work and, not really caring all that much, decided, well, I want to hear what Emily has to say about Oaklawn. So I hopped on and we started talking. And then from there, we kind of grew it into a few more things. And now we're doing videos. And this will be our first dedicated podcast. And we did this podcast because Edward Deitch wanted to do a phone call. So we said, if Eddie D wants to do a phone call, we do a phone call. So you're going to get some not great audio at times. It does kind of get better towards the middle and towards the end. But you can't record on an iPhone. You can do it with one person, not with two. Or if you can, I'm just a boomer who can't figure out his own phone. Details, that happens. But this is our conversation with Edward Deitch and his winning plays at the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. Which we were obviously interested in, wanted to talk to him about, but we were much more interested in his overall play in tournaments and how he handles tournaments. And as I said, if you've listened to us at all, we've lovingly called him, in optics reference, the Q4 square, which is a big time closer. And if you go and check the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge leaderboard, it's about the biggest Q4 square you've seen since maybe Zenyatta. So hope you enjoy it. Talk to you soon.
I guess we're good to go.
Yeah, should be all set.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, first of all, how do you say your last name? I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Thank you. Okay, good. We've been right there. And then you prefer Ed, right? That's how we're on that. Okay, cool. Because it's always, I mean, if you're looking at any Twin Spires leaderboard, you're seeing Edward Deicke. You said it right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but we're gonna go by Ed for today. But you'll see that name on the leaderboard because that's who we're talking with now. And as Nick and I, we started covering. Well, Nick and I have been talking for a long time, but we started doing the tournament coverage back in December, especially with Twin Spires games, because of the way they present the leaderboard, that you can see everybody's bets, and it's just, in terms of coverage, in terms of following, you can really see the process of players. And you were a player that, for us, right from the jump, we're like, this Ed guy is good. Like, every tournament, always dangerous, no matter the bank, unless it's zero, but no matter the bankroll, is like always in with the shot. Follow, been wanting to talk to you for a while. You just won the 2026 KDPC. So we're talking, normally with like a lot of this stuff, it's, oh, this is the person that won the tournament, let's get them on. Obviously, that's nice. We are going to talk about that, but it just worked out so randomly that posting about the tournament, mutual friend Paul Kavanaugh said, oh, I know him, he's a great guy. And from there, it was just like, we have to talk to him. So that's where this has been a long time coming. So, and in terms of tournaments, like, what is it for you that just is like that draw to play handicapping horse player tournaments?
I just prefer it because I feel as if there's,
with the CAWs involved in the game, and we also saw what happened on Saturday with that Japanese horse going from 12-1 to 5-1 last flash. In recent years, I've just taken a lot more of my handle and aimed it towards tournaments rather than towards, betting in my Naira Bets app, because I feel like we're playing against each other. And when we're playing against each other, that money that we're playing against each other there's no takeout. So as long as different people win, obviously if the same person won every week, then people would fall out. But since there are so many good players, there are a lot of different people winning on a lot of different weeks, and we're playing amongst ourselves, and we're avoiding that amount of money as far as takeout goes. The other thing I like about the tournaments is, my strategy of playing is very much to try to focus in on one bet that I think is the right bet for the day. I've qualified for the NHC like the last 9 years, and I've done okay. I've had a few cashes, and I've done fine. But the tournament is like you have to pick 18 different races a day, and I can't get past 2 or 3. I really want to just try to find the 2-3 things that I like in a given card and just send it in on those. So the tournaments really help me focus on that, because the people that win the tournaments, they have one really good opinion, and they go and they fire in on it, and then they're able to use that really good opinion, or sometimes it's 2 really good opinions, to win tournaments. So, I just love it. The other thing that's great about the tournaments for me is just it's so compartmentalized as far as time. Like, I like to play on Saturdays. I like to play tournaments on Saturdays because, it's just works with my schedule, my life schedule. And then sometimes I'll play some tournaments during the week just to feed into those tournaments, smaller tournaments to feed in. And I just like the way, you don't have to play 5 hours straight. You could bet the first couple of races, take a walk, go on the elliptical, do whatever you want to do. You're forced to bet every race, and I just like doing that.
So when we've watched you play, a lot of the times Emily works for optics when they use squares and circles. And one of the big things is like a square in the quad 4 circle is like the big closer. And so we've called you a Q4 square a lot because it seems like your last play is the one that wins you the tournament. I don't know, every time that you win. Is that like your strategy, is to do a, all in shove at the end, or do you just not like races at the beginning, or what is your strategy typically?
I almost never bet the first race.
Right.
I mean, period. For several reasons. Like I would say, like if you look at these weekend races at Churchill Downs, I thought Friday, the rail and speed were really, really bad at Churchill. And, then the first couple of races on Saturday, actually speed did pretty well. So, it didn't affect the way I felt about the Kentucky Derby, because that race to me is just always the closest race because of just how many speed horses end up in the same place at the same time, unlike any other race you'll ever see. But, it did make me think a little bit more about, who I wanted to play the rest of the way, and it affected some of the other bets that I made. So I very rarely bet the early races. One of the reasons that I wait a lot with races is that I love having targets. I love to know what it is. What's the number? What number do I have to get to win this tournament? And conversely, with the Twin Spires tournaments, that's really interesting. I think the Twin Spires tournaments from what winning means. Some of these tournaments, 1st and 10th, are exactly the same price.
Yep.
And it really takes a long time to get your head around that, because we've all been taught since we were kids. I played, not at any kind of high level, but I played a lot of sports when I was a kid, and everybody said, you got to win, you got to win, you got to win. And 9th is as good as 1st. So, as you look down, a lot of it is experience and playing in a lot of tournaments and knowing, just saying, okay, where do I have to get to? And maybe liking a horse in the last race, having $100 to bet, but it's only going to take $220 cash. So now instead of maybe making a win bet on that 4-1 shot, you just make a place bet. Now if he runs 1st or 2nd, you're going to end up the same way. So, I'm glued to the math, obviously, when it comes to things like that. And, that's one of the reasons that I come in late. But also, as you look at a lot of cards, always remember, like, every one of these tracks wants to have a pick 6 carryover. Right? That's like a goal. You've got 9 horse. You've got 9 races. The first 3 races are your 5 horse fields, your 6 horse fields,
I mean, I feel like at Tampa Bay Downs, like the first 3 races, the horse never pays over $5 because they run their 5 horse fields, first, second, and third, so that they can have, more bigger fields for races 4 through 9. And just in general, I feel like I want to be playing into bigger fields rather than shorter fields. So the later races tend to have the bigger fields.
Yeah, and the other, going off that, I think this is one of the things that is hard for players a lot that you mentioned is like having that target. How do you, what are kind of like some of your tips or some of the things that you think about? Because every tournament is different.
Yeah.
Going in, you can have an idea of like, this is the target. Like, I'm guessing that the target that you hit for or what you hit for Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, not Breeders' Cup, but Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge might have been different that morning of than what it was like in running. So like adjusting for that final number. What are some things that you look at as far as like what that could be? Because there's so much there in terms of like going in. What is it going to win this tournament?
So there's a lot to that, right? So
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. One of the things you want to just be doing anytime in a tournament is just in general looking and seeing where everybody is. Going from top to bottom on the leaderboard and saying, okay, how many guys are completely dead? How many are at 0? How many have a total? How many, who has the highest total, right? Oftentimes I'll add up the entire tournament and be like, okay, 100 people started out with $300. Just they cumulatively have right now to get a feel for if they're ahead or behind at this point. That'll affect my feeling of what will win. And as far as targets go, the best story I can tell you about targets is this Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge because last year I was in this tournament and I had 2 entries, and I love Sovereignty. I thought Sovereignty was, I was telling people privately, I thought it was one of the best 8-1 shots you'll ever see in your entire life. The horse should have been 3-1, 7-2 at worst. But there was that kid who owned a piece of Sandman. And that horse was 9-2.
Right there. I think there's a band called Metallica that was also.
That was it too. Put a kid on TV. I don't know nothing about social media. I'm not on Twitter or Facebook.
Oh well, that's the key to the success.
Okay, so that was because of that thing. Yeah, that.
But yes, I'm sorry to kind of derail it a little bit.
Okay. Mariano Rivera, right?
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. So I know the song. So, anyway, that horse was like 14, 15 to 1 in the multi-race bets, but 9-2 on the board. Now, on the other hand, Sovereignty, who was 8-1 in the win pool, was a lot shorter in the exacta pool. So in one of my entries, I had like $2,800. I turned 3,500 to 2,800. The other one, I had 2,100. I had a little thing for Baeza too. I liked him a little bit, and I was like, I don't know. I think I'm just going to split these entries. I'm going to put 2,800 to win on Sovereignty and 2,100 to win on Baeza, which was a very bad decision. I should have taken the whole 4,900 and played Sovereignty on top in exactas, because I had in my mind when the day started that roughly a 20 bag would win. 3,500 needs to turn into 70,000 in a field of 250 people.
Yeah.
Right? But at that time, the leaderboard was not very high.
Yeah.
The leaderboard was
what, 21?
Yeah.
I think going into that last race.
Yeah, that's right. So I said, okay, well, if I take 2,800 and I get, 9 times that, right? I'm going to get like 25,000. And maybe I'm not going to win with that, but maybe I come in third or fourth. And now I'm getting like, great pot odds on this horse.
Yep.
I got the horse to win. I think I came in 15th or 17th. And then I went, I looked. Everybody in front of me just had a few $100 more than me. And they had Sovereignty. They did the same thing.
Yep.
They got Sovereignty too when they were hitting. Yeah. Right? So this year I was like, do not be lulled to sleep by totals. There's so many people in this tournament that are going to have money. And so I adopted a plan. My plan was to bet $3,000 to win on Golden Tempo. People told me that, hey, you just looked down at the last second and you bet that horse because that was the right horse, for pot odds. That is not the case. I started thinking about making that bet 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's go.
I knew that Golden Tempo was going to be 20-1 plus, and I knew if I could just take one entry around 3,000, I was going to make that win bet. That's the horse that I liked.
Oh my God.
And it's funny because what happened to me, the reason that I liked it horse is that last year in the NHC, I did really poorly. And I vowed this year to make a much better show of myself. So I spent this winter, January, February, watching races from Turfway Park, watching races from the fairgrounds, places that I don't play normally. I watched a lot of races from the fairgrounds. And let me tell you, if you did like I did, Jose Ortiz, day in and day out, the guy was unbelievably good. When he broke well, he went right to the lead. When he broke poorly, he never panicked. He went right to the rail. He sat. The guy was sensational at the fairgrounds. But the fairgrounds, Dirk, this winter, did not play the closers. Horses right there the whole year. So what happens to me? I go out to the NHC. On the flight out, I catch some kind of little bug. And I had tickets to see The Wizard of Oz on the Thursday before the NHC. I get there. I go into my hotel room at noon, at a 2:00 thing. The room starts spinning. It was just out of The Wizard of Oz. That I was the house was spinning around, when The Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
My room was spinning. I was so sick I couldn't go to The Wizard of Oz. I had to miss it and stay in my room. The next 2 days, I played the worst. It was the worst handicapping I've ever done in my life. I was nowhere in the tournament, and I must have bet 10 fairgrounds races and went 0 for 10. So after all that effort that I made to win the NHC by preparing for things, I had the worst weekend I've ever had in my life betting tournaments. But then you know what? Then 6 weeks later, all that work that I did to gain that little bit of knowledge, gave me Golden Tempo.
Yeah. I just realized this. So Ed not being on social media, he has no idea that I've been hyping this horse for all these reasons too. So that's why I'm saying
that's why we laughed so hard, was because Emily was the queen of Golden Tempo. She's been stalking Cherie DeVoe, and her family took a 15-hour van ride, and Emily's the best handicapper in the world. But her big thing was would you go on a van for 15 hours with your family? Not a chance. The only way you're doing that is if you're winning the Kentucky Derby.
That was this having fun, but then you start getting into the intent point of it. But I saw the same things as you. You couldn't close at the fairgrounds.
No.
And this horse is still closing at the fairgrounds. So he's a massive upgrade from those races. Every race is getting faster. The horse, I was watching the workouts. We did a video on workouts, and this horse was just absolutely caught my eye training. And I'm this horse could not be doing better. Just everything is going to line up. The way.
And it's funny. It's funny because I have it all on my office that I sit in, and I watch the races on my computer. But for a day like the Kentucky Derby, I also have my TV on in the living room, so I'll watch the feed from the track on my computer, and I'll have NBC on. Although I spend the whole day screaming at NBC, stop showing the guy with the hat and the excitable thing, and interview a trainer. But listen, I understand they're trying to get people to watch that aren't hardcore, players like I am. But I want to see as many trainer interviews during the day. And earlier, when Cherie DeVoe ran Englishman, they asked her, how did Golden Tempo wake up this morning? And she said, "Oh, it was a typical wake up for Golden Tempo. He woke up, and then he went right back and took a nap." And I know it's crazy, but they had a lot of people saying that Further Ado had a ton of energy every time he went on the track. And the more they said that, the more I said about Further Ado. You don't want a horse like that on Derby Day.
That's right. Absolutely.
On Derby Day, these horses go from seeing 3 people their whole lives to 150,000 drunk people all at once. And some horses get through it, and some horses don't. And I want a horse that just took a nap. What I mean? Who seems unaffected by it, rather than a horse who's, looking around and amped up. Because some of these horses, by the time they get to the gate, already, wasted their races. I mean, if you look at that chart after it's over, look at some of these horses. I don't know what speed figures you guys like to use by or whatever it is, but If they were running 98 buyers, all of a sudden on Saturday they ran a 78 buyer. Good horses don't do that. They run close to their fast numbers. That's why they're good horses. But the unbelievable number of horses on Derby Day that run a really, really bad race that day because of the circumstances. If you want to try to find a horse that you feel is gonna be good in that situation. And one of the things is that you never know until they get over there. I had a little push for the 11 Incredible, who knocked it in the paddock before the race, was lathered out, was not doing well. And I in my pocket I put a little win bet on him just to try to get back all the money I was going to lose in the tournament if the 19 went down. But I canceled it. Joe, after I saw the way he looked, he just wasn't handling himself. So that's the thing that I did. I basically had it in my mind for quite some time to have 3,000 horse. With the other entry that I had, I wanted to try to get the 6,000, 6,700, so I could bet emerging markets. That was the other horse that I liked. But what happened on the way to the last race was that whole Japanese thing. That horse went from 12 to 1 to 5
to 1. Yeah.
And I changed my mind and I put 5,700 to win on Bourbon. So when I was watching the Derby, people said, "Oh, you must have been jumping up, you must have been screaming." I wasn't. I was cheering for the non-Bourbon. But there was 319 at the 8 ball. I was rooting for the wrong horse. And then when it started to crumble mid-stretch, I started to look around saying, "Where's Jose?"
Yeah.
And literally,
the screen coming late.
Literally, I caught him, and I'm watching with my wife, and she's like, "Did he just win?" And I go, "I don't." I said, "Yeah, that was the 19. What was the other horse?" So I was rooting for the wrong horse. From what I understand now that this tournament is over, somebody went and looked at all the bets that people made and said that one guy had 8,500 to win on the non-Bourbon.
Yep.
And another guy was alive for a $96,000 double if the non-Bourbon won, which means if the horse that would have given me more money, because 5,700 times 14 was going to be more, I would have come in third.
Yep.
Rather than first. It's $90,000 in prize money difference.
Yeah.
So I was rooting for the wrong horse. I was sitting there because so the other thing that happened, guys, is interesting to the story is after the races were over, got 73,662. I go click on my thing, it says I have $3,054, right? I click on it again, the thing wouldn't update. So I called Aaron Zercali from Twin Stars, and I'm like, "Again, what's going on, man? He's really update." He goes, "Oh, you just master my bets, it's no problem. It's going to take a while." So I click on my own entry. I go down to 78, and I click on my own entry, and what I do, it says at race 12, $3,054 on the 19, and it pays $73,662. So now I take a deep breath. I'm like, okay, I got the bet in, money's in my account, I know it's good. But the difference between first and second and third is unbelievable.
Yes.
But I realize now that I can go check everybody else. That was 77 people. So I went through everyone's entry. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think all 77 of them lost. Maybe someone hit for like $1,700, but I think 70.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, because we all did the same thing because it was like 2 hours. It was like 2 hours before it.
So I realized, and when I got to my number at 78, I'm like, look, now if I got beat, it's somebody who had the cold, right? Who had $1,000 and beat me from behind.
Yep.
That's not going to be two people. That's going to be one lucky guy.
Yep.
So the worst I am now is second. So after this 2 hour delay, it comes up and it says, first place, Ed Deicke, first place, Matthew McJunkin, and we both had $50,000.
That was just some glitch, yeah.
Did you see that?
Yes. Oh, we have the screenshots. We have.
So now I'm going, did they take out like 30% for taxes? What's this?
But still, when you click on your name, it still shows that you have that 77, right? So that's why I was like, oh, there's
73, but yeah.
73, yeah.
Yeah. I checked Matthew again. I already looked up this guy, right? He's the first guy I checked, right? Is to see that but I thought he played it really well. First of all, the guy played tremendously. Congratulations to him. He played great. He made a bold bet. That was a big, smart, bold bet in the middle of the contest. And then he did what I would have done if I was sitting in his place. If I was at 66, I would have been like, I'm not going to breach 60. I wouldn't have bet more than $6,000. He bet like 30-something or something like that. To try to get your total up to 70, 80, and then hope that a guy like me or anybody else who was looking to pick, that off, you would have put up a little bit higher total than that person would have anticipated, and I hope that would have pushed you to a place where that person, you would have put up 80, and then that person would have been 73 or 75 or whatever it is, and you still would win. So, I figured I was, I was 1-2 for a while, but when it came up, we celebrated. It was special. I mean, I had 70 in my mind as a number that I wanted to get to, as a number I thought would win. And obviously to have a total very, very close to that, and then having it be true. And then, of course, finding out later that had the other horse won, I would have had a higher total and I would have come in third. It just shows how hard it is, and to win a tournament like this, because there are a lot of sharp people around, and a lot of people made a really good bet on Denon Bourbon. I'm sure a lot of them are not happy with the ride that they got. I thought that jockey moved way too early. I mean, the horses that he battled with, he beat by like 30 lengths. I think if he had sat a little more patient, and moved later, he would have been very, very tough to run down. But that's neither here nor there. That's horse racing.
Yeah, and I mean, in the Derby too, just when you're in that spot, it was kind of like the same thing with Two Bills and Jared Loveberry. People will be like, "Oh, Jared moved too early," then he wouldn't gotten run down by Maze. But it's like if you're in that spot, yeah, and horses are backing up and horses are starting to close, and it's like you have your opportunities. Like you've got to go and kind of be assertive, right? Because it could win you the race as much as it might get you beat, right? It's just like it's one of those things that you have to you're kind of moving forward, right? It's sort of like your play when you're being a closer in a tournament. Like I just have to target a number and just hit my number, right? And hopefully like it works out. But like if you're in that middle path position in the tournament, you've got to kind of make your move when you can, and hope that it kind of works out. If that analogy lands, I hope so.
Yeah.
Sounds smart. But
so I just think, look, I go up to Saratoga for the summer, and moving too soon on the dirt is the smartest thing you can do, right? So many horses come on too late and don't get there. In the majority of dirt races, speed is an unbelievable asset. Waiting far back. This is the one race where you almost can't wait enough. It's just amazing how different it is than every other, dirt race. And it's a combination of factors, right? Like you have all these horses prepping in 8-9 horse fields, so maybe there's 1, 2, 3 speed horses, right? This race is 18 horses, and there are 8 speed horses. So it's just really different for the front runners, than it is in every other circumstance, where probably where that guy moved in a regular dirt race would have been good. But the Kentucky Derby is a tough race. You got to really, you almost have to ride it a little bit differently. And who's to say, maybe if he waited, he still would have gotten down. He would have been third or fourth. But I think if he had to do it over again, he might have waited a little bit, just a touch longer.
Well, for somebody with a 19.7 exacta, that would have been nice. I would have been okay with that. All right. One of the things that you touched on is something that we wanted to ask a bit more, is that playing for a number when you're kind of what you mentioned, like those examples of people that went for that target, but the position that Matt was in. So when you have the lead, because I think all the tournaments that we've seen, I don't think Nick, I don't know, have we seen where a tournament where Ed's been in the lead, going into the last race? Like how do you approach those type of things?
I have won tournaments where I fired it early and have taken the lead. I always like to say Shakespeare, heavy lays the head that wears the crown. It's not easy. Matt, I'm sure if you had Matt on, he'll tell you, when you see that 66,000 in your name and you're way ahead, could they run the races every 25 minutes apart instead of, it's like, the guy was the leader for like 5 or 6 hours, and, when you lead tournaments like that, it can make you great. But yeah, no, I like I said, I thought Matt. I don't know the guy at all, but I thought he played it. I know he's a good player. I see his name on the leaderboard, but I don't know him personally. I thought he played it really well. That's how I would have played it. Exactly how I would have played it. I would have just tried to chip up from there and, try to think, where can people come and get me? And after it was over, if I was him, I would have thought I would have come in second or third, something like that. I would have thought that I would have gotten caught, but I'm sure.
It can be a tough spot for players to be in, especially Matt plays a lot. He's a really good player. I agree. I don't think he made any mistakes. He played,
played it spot on. Yeah.
But in that position that you're in, that covering tournaments, how many times we've seen some errors in that spot where you can overbet, you can, really put yourself out of position and then just getting too nervous as far as like somebody's going to come get me. And that point of being like, okay, I need to sacrifice, like not sacrifice, so to speak, but I need to play just enough to where I'm not going to lose my edge, but also cover myself in enough. And also too, that comes down to hopefully having some opinion in the last race can definitely help you out, right? Because then you're working with two things in your favor: minimize bankroll and a good opinion.
Right, and the real problem with this Kentucky Derby betting challenge is that it's not easy to make a safe bet.
Yeah.
There is none, right? I mean, even like you could have bet. Could you say, okay, Renegade for place? Like, if you were sitting with like 20,000 and you said, okay, 70's going to win it, right? Could you bet Renegade to place, 20,000 to place, figuring that'll get you to 70 and that'll get you the money? You could have thought that. And then the horse almost got put over the rail, was way far back. It just got up for second. It's not exactly, this is 7-horse field and this horse is, 2-1. And, I only need to go from, 100 to 160 so I can get placed with this. You know what I'm saying? It's really a complicated, bet in the last race because it's just not that safe of a bet. Matt could have considered like, 3,000 a plate, you know what I'm saying? Something like that. But who's to say you're going to pick the right horse? It's an 18-horse race.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a standout favorite. And if you took, Renegade, you worried about what kind of trip you were going to get. Of course, you got a really, really bad one. So, I felt he got roughed.
Which comes with the territory with a closer. With a closer at a short price. It's like,
so
what's going on?
If the horse was in the middle of the pack, he would have been 3-1, not 5-1. So, you got paid for for that in some way. Although, and he was probably second best anyway. So, it's probably worked out, the way it should have anyway. So,
yeah. One of the things that, in terms of the Kentucky Derby betting challenge, BCBC, these big tournaments, even NHC for that matter, that are so top heavy and you want to win, and it impacts obviously the way that you play because it's worth one of the things that I think you said, what was it, like the
pot odds?
Yeah, your pot odds. So I want you to explain that just a little bit more for people that don't quite understand that even though you're making a $3,000 bet into a 23-1 shot, it's actually more than that because not only are you getting that money that you're betting, but you're getting the prize money. So just kind of like expand on that a little bit more for people that are maybe unfamiliar with tournaments or just something like that goes through your mind when making those type of decisions in place.
Sure. So and really Friday's contest is a much better example of it.
Perfect. But yeah, let's lay it that.
But honestly, extremely complicated. And I'm not sure that I'm like ready to call like, is Tony Zhao's last name? Is that how you pronounce it? Zhao?
Tony Joe, yeah.
Tony Joe, is that how it is? Okay, I never know. I don't know the man. I see his name because he probably is the best player, best player in the country. But Tony is probably the math guy I should ask. But so for this was very straightforward, right? I got $3,000 and I was for 23-1. If he wins, I'm some percentage chance first, some percentage chance second, some percentage chance third. Maybe I could be fourth, something like that. So in this example, the fact that I won, the math would be I put in a $5,000 entry. I bet $3,000, but I think when you go all in and you bet your 3,000, you're actually really betting 5,000, right? You're betting your entire entry fee, the whole thing, right? Because part of the pot odds you put into that pot, right? I put $1,500 of my money into that prize pool,
Yep.
right? So the math would be, 73,000 plus 127,000 plus a Breeders' Cup seat is 210. Right, I'm gonna win $210,000 on a $5,000 investment. So I'm effectively getting 41 to 1 on a 23 to 1 shot. That's a pot odds bet. Now here's the one that's more complicated. This is what I did on Friday.
Now Friday, just so we can back up a little bit, is the Oaks tournament, which
Right.
did have it ultimately is, let me just load up so I have all the numbers here. There's 285 entries, it's $1,000 buy-in, 500 to bankroll, 500 prize pool. There was ultimately 28 seats for a KDBC. The top 6 ended up getting cash. First place, 12,500, second place, 5,000, and sixth place, 1,000. So just to add some context as you talk about this tournament.
Right. So to give you guys some background on me, I on big days, I have a group of friends that went to Flora Park Memorial High School, which is the high school that overlooks the backstretch of Belmont Park. So all these guys are horse players. They spent their whole life in math class staring out the window, looking at horses train. So I send out a text on the morning of big races, and I tell people who I like. So on the morning of Oaks, I said, not sure about a win bet, but I would box the 5, 9, 10 exacta here. Those are the 3 horses that I liked.
5 is meaning, 10 is from 9 is always a runner.
Correct. So I have $288 in one entry. I have $502 in the other entry. And the cutoff line is about $1,700, meaning top 28. I had to have more than $1,700. So I decided that even though I liked that exacta, and the exacta was paying, depending on which way it was going to come in between, 35 to 1 and 50 to 1, maybe even 55 to 1, that even if I could turn 288 into $6,000 and pass the leader, I was going to be betting on something that was 30 to 1 to come in to win $17,000. As opposed to, because I would have gotten the $12,500 first place cash prize plus the seat, which was worth $5,000. But my money was going to have to be at, for argument's sake, 288. I would have to take, roughly 25 to 1, or call it 22 to 1. As opposed to if I just bet what I did, which was a win bet on the 9 at 5 to 1. So I know this is really complicated, but in other words, I would have won 2.5 times as much money, but I would have taken on 4 times as much risk.
Yep. That.
It's complicated stuff, but it's the stuff we need to talk about. So
yeah. So in my other entry, I put $502 to place on meaning, again, to take 2 to 1 versus I would have had to have taken 12 to 1. So again, I would have gotten 2.5 times the on the money, 3 times on the money, and taken 5 times the amount of risk. I mean, it was a brilliant bet.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know how I think of these things. I guess I spent too much time playing horses, but it was a great bet. And the funniest thing that happened was I went to go box the 5, 9, 10 exacta in my pocket, but for some ungodly reason, the 9, 10 exacta was paying like $32, and the 10, 9 exacta was paying $32. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that then. Let me have $100 key box 5 with 9, 10. I didn't even do the bet I told other people to do. So when it comes to 9, 10, 10, 9, I didn't have it because I didn't want it because $32 is great. That's a big field. I don't want that exactly for $32. So I ended up, I was going to play a $50 box, 5, 9, 10, instead of playing a $100 key box. So I ended up bidding the exacta for $4,900 instead of $2,400. And I, then of course, once they hit the wire, now I'm like, Yeah, 20 guys behind you could have done that too. You're going to come in 29th and 30th and not gotten 2 seeds. So, of course, my joy, the only thing better than 24th and 25th would have been 27th and 28th, which really would have been. It would have fun for me if that had occurred. But I came in 24th and 25th, so I got 2 seats for next year's tournament. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. These type of tournaments, and, I'm a big, I know you guys are big tournament fans and you want to tell people how great they are, but I mean, I really have fallen in love with Twin Spires. I just feel like the way that they do it is just so great that it lets people at all price points participate. And feeders into feeders that can get you into these nice tournaments like this. And a guy who starts out with $50 can be in a $5,000 tournament at the end of the year, which is just great.
It's the same thing. I mean, that's when we started covering it, was when Twin Spires, with the Twin Spires tournament, like having the leaderboard, having that game that you mentioned, like you can play at any price point. And also from a player standpoint, usually you'll think, okay, a $50 cash game, like it's going to be easier. It's like, no, man, you still have the same heads that are in these big games that are playing these $50 games, and it's a smaller scale, but it's the same skill. It's the same level of skill. So it's allowing players to not only just kind of get in at that comfortable number, but it's allowing people to play where you still have to play good, right? If mistakes are going to get exposed, you're going to be around good people.
I don't see any easy contests. I don't see contests where there are good players. I mean, I don't know. I know some of the players in the contest. I know from going to the NHC. When you go to the NHC, and if you're fortunate enough to qualify for it, and anybody's listening and wants to, it's really is a great contest to be in. You sit at your table, there's 7 other people there. I know 1 or 2 of them. I don't know all of them. And you get to talk to people, and you realize how hard it is to win these tournaments, because these people are good. They know what they're doing. They know the math. They know the horses. They know the trainers. They know all that. And then they have the ability to stick with their discipline over a long period of time. It's not easy to win these smaller contests. I agree with you. I think that's overrated. But the one good thing is in playing these tournaments is that you start to see what people are doing around you, and you start to see, what they do that's successful. And I think it really helps elevate your own handicapping, which is what I think a lot of people want to do, right? The one thing people ask me all the time, how do you pick horses? And I'm like, it's ever evolving. It changes all the time. I used to be just a real, thoroughgrass, Ragusan sheep guy, and, I would just play the numbers. But it doesn't work the way it once did. I think back in the day, years ago, there were a few of us that had the thoroughgrass, and a few of us had the Ragusans. Now I think a lot of people have them. And not only that, more importantly, the trainers have them. So they're training off these speed figures, and they're putting their horses where they think, based on it, and you're getting that too. So, there's so many different factors now. But once you can become a good handicapper, or feel that you're a good handicapper, you really don't want to lose any of these tournaments to bad money management decisions. You want to try to make sure that when you actually are right, and you do have, a golden tempo, that you don't waste your time, you don't not score. You know what I mean? Like, you have the right horse, but you make the wrong bet. It really almost needs to not happen if you want to be a top tournament player. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that when you're right, that you get paid for it. And that's what you see a lot in these contests, that guys who pick out the winners, they don't miss. They win the tournament.
Yep.
They have the right horse, so you want to try to emulate that as much as you can.
So kind of on that note, as you're talking about the use kind of golden tempo and display this kind of more as like an example base, but if that 20, that's your opinion, that's your horse, being able to get your bankroll to that point and then play it accordingly. Is that kind of how it would translate in tournament?
Well, I think, you always have to worry about, so the rules of this tournament were you had to make 7 $250 bets, and you had to bet your whole tournament. It's funny. Right. On the NHC tour, I'm a mentor. And apparently I'm a very bad one, because they had sent me people to be mentors on the tour, and they never call me back. Like I always speak to the person once, and I never hear from them again. And they asked me what my number one thing I would tell them to do, and and I always say the same thing: read the rules. And then the second thing you should do after you read the rules is read the rules again. And then the third thing you should do after you do that is then read the rules again. Knowing the rules in these contests, people get disqualified. People put the minimum bets in. Good players. I would mention one, but he's my friend, so I'm not going to badmouth him on the thing. But there are good players that have been disqualified.
So did Mike Stomach?
No, I was going to say Tom Maloof, because I think 2 years ago in the Breeders' Cup, he came in 9th, I came in 10th, and he didn't put in enough bets, so I moved in front of him. And he said, no matter what you do, don't tell my wife how much that cost. But anyway.
It happens. I mean,
it happened in the KDBC this year. Somebody had 23,000, and they bet $200 as a minimum. Yep.
Yeah, I saw that. So you want to definitely read the rules. You want to see what that is. So a tournament like this, you have to make those six $250 bets. So in my example, if I had turned those six $250 bets into zero, I would have only had 2,000 on that horse, not 3,000, right? And then I would have had 46,000 or 48. I would have 48,000 and change instead of 73,000 and change, and I come in third, not first, which would have cost me $90,000. But you can't stop it if you're going to go. Anybody can go 0 for 6. You know what I mean? If you think you can't, I mean, I go out to Saratoga. There's some Saturdays where it's just these tremendous fields, and there's a lot of 12-horse fields. Breeders' Cup Day, right? It's so easy to go 0 for 10 on Breeders' Cup Day because you're betting a 10, 15 to 1 shot every race because the races are so good, and there's so many great 10, 15 to 1 shots. So that's the thing, is like trying to negotiate your bankroll to get there. I actually got off to a really bad start on Derby Day. I was running around, I was running errands, and the first race, which I never play, but, there was that horse for Irad Ortiz, the 11 horse. He went right to the lead. He won easy. It's like, I should have put $250 to show on that one. So what did I do? The next race, Irad was on Taptastic or something like that. Yep. And I said, this double's paying $5. They must know this horse can't lose. I put $250 to show on both entries, and he ran fourth. So I was stomping around the house. I was pissed off. I was like, bet that race. Now, already I'm going down my bankroll. I'm not going to get to the 3,000, which is what I wanted to do. So the next race, I decided, you know what? I'm not making a conservative bet. I'm just going to bet the race. And in one entry, I had 100 to win a place on the winner that paid 7 to 1. That was the entry that ended up winning. So that got me to like 4,500 of that entry. The other entry, I had the exacta for $44, for $22. I think it paid $270 or something like that. I don't know, whatever it was. I hit for like 3,000. So I was at 60-something hundred and 4,500. So then I was pumped up because now I'm like, okay, I'm at totals I want to be at, So that can be an issue when you play tournaments, that by the time you get to the place you want to go all in, you didn't have as much to go all in with as you had hoped, when the day started. And, that can be an issue, but you just have to try to do the best you can.
Yeah, and we covered 2025. KDBC did a video of it like right before, so it's very fresh in my mind. But with Frank Massari, who ended up winning, he missed all of his minimums going into that last race. He had to hit a single bet, and Richie finished second, who made probably like the greatest two-hitter you've ever seen. He was down going into the second to last race that he ended up playing. But he was all in, right? He was like all in with like 1,000 or whatever it was. And then that bankroll bringing him up to what he could play in the Derby. But that's, to that example, I don't think Frank or Rich were like, hey, this is the position I wanted to be in, right? Even though it worked out to run 1-2. But yeah, I mean, it's
those guys great players, and the value of that is that, you're never out of it. Don't put your head down, no matter where you are. I mean,
that was about you. Like when Darren put out the tweet, he goes, it comes from out of nowhere, and we're just like, I saw you early on. I saw both your entries had those amounts that you're talking about, and I'm like, it's a dangerous man. It's a dangerous man on the leaderboard right now. I know the score is what it is right now with Chris Larmy at 43 and Matt at 66, but I mean, watch the tournament enough. I know who those people are dangerous.
I mean, look, the difference between those guys and me is that I hadn't even made a bet that could have paid that amount. So they
correct.
I had totals that I didn't have a combination that I had played that would play like that. So I wasn't concerned about it. But, we talked earlier before we started recording about the 2017 Breeders' Cup. I don't know Nissan Gabe from a hole in the wall, but I'm telling you, he put 1,000 to win on Talismanic. Horse one paid 20 something to 1 or whatever it was, and then he played three $10,000 exactas in the classic. The guy had $1,000 left at 7,500, and he turned it into whatever that was worth, 600,000-700,000.
Yeah,
I see how they do it, and so that can be done. Sometimes there's all different positions that people can come from. And it could be a tournament, and again, it could be a tournament like the KDBC. It could be a small tournament, whatever it is, but you got to keep your wits about you. When things don't go your way early, it doesn't mean you can't turn it around with the right bets late.
Yeah, and since we are talking about 2017, I found that fascinating. Even one, like I said, that one was near and dear to my heart as well, because I was there. I was there with my mom. You were there with your son. So, we kind of had that bonding. My mom went to Del Mar, with her dad. I never got to go to race with my grandpa because I wasn't interested in horse racing when he was around. So it was one of those things that if we don't go to this, he's gonna be mad type of thing, right? And at Friday, and why I say this is near and dear to my heart is because I made a huge mistake playing Friday, and it's probably one that was in some ways, I'm glad I recognized it was a mistake because it made my play so much better, and I think about that bet a lot, is Battle of Midway. I really like that horse. It was 10 to 1. And I bet exactas and doubles and pick threes or whatever and missed everything. And so I had nothing on the horse. And the whole night, that whole Friday, I was like, never again. I will never, ever, ever do that as long as I live. I will always bet to win, straight up. Change that, change everything, in that moment. But yeah, Saturday was massive. I had Barb Gold was one of the horses that I absolutely loved, and had the pick 3 closed out with her, and it was over 10 grand for 50 cents. And then the Huddy tournament. Do you play the Huddy tournament?
No.
Okay. That's an online one, but I ended up winning the Huddy tournament as well. So that's an underground tournament that people will know on that day. But I want to hear about your Del Mar, because this was your first, first Breeders' Cup setting challenge.
Yeah, I had a friend, my friend Steve Red, who just passed away, by the way, this past summer. Unfortunately, he didn't make it to 70. That's a great guy. And I said to him, I think, Steve, this Breeders' Cup betting challenge is $10,000. But the way I read this, it's kind of I don't know, free food and free admission and seats outside. It's $8,000 worth of free stuff. If we go in $5 grand each to go into this thing, we're going to spend $1,000 at the bar anyway. And I said, listen, no one has all the answers. We'll just figure it out. We'll make plays and we'll figure it out. So we start the first day on Friday. We don't do anything. We turn 7,500 into 6,200 or whatever it is. And we go out into town, and Steve was a real funny guy, and we meet all kinds of people, and we're having a great time. And these beautiful young girls come up to us, and they start talking to us, and they say, who would you guys like tomorrow? And we tell them, well, we like Washita is our best bet of the entire day. But if you're looking for a live long shot, Bar of Gold, we love Bar of Gold tomorrow. So next day we go to the races, and we start betting, and you have to bet $750 a race, and we're $50 bettors. You know what I mean? We're bet $50 a race. So we start playing the Bar of Gold race. We start boxing the exacta. We start playing some doubles, and we start doing this. And Steve's like, how much have we bet so far? And I'm like, $310. You know what I mean? We had already bet way, way more than we would ever bet on this race in a million years, and the horse 60 to 1. Anyway, Bar Gold wins. We have the exacta. It was the 2 horses we liked the most. It was some Canadian horse, Amy's Mesa, maybe was it?
Yeah, Amy's Mesa was a Jody Carroll horse that was coming in from Woodbine. Yeah.
we had that exacta for $10. It paid $2,000. We get for $10,000. We said I had that exacta for $200. You know what I'm saying? That was the exacta we liked, but we didn't know to bet it like that. You know what I mean? Then we had a $28 double fajita. So that paid like, I don't know, 40,000, whatever it was. We got like 55,000. But I'm telling you, that's what was like cold. The next race was Roy H over that sprinter, that really fast sprinter, Imperial something. Imperial Head. Yeah. We loved that exacta cold. But we were so crazy with having 55,000. Like we were leading or in second. We just didn't know what to do. Then we both loved Good Magic. I forget what we did. I didn't like, just put 10,000 in and do that. But my friend Steve was like, hey, we won $65,000. Let's not mess this up. And of all the Breeders' Cup betting challenges I've ever been in, I mean, like literally, of those 5 races, Bargo was our top choice, Wahita was our top choice, Roy H was our top choice, and Good Magic was our top choice. And we used World Approval. We have everyone. The pick threes, we won I think I won like 80,000 in my pocket. Because we had every one of these pick threes and whatever they were.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that was bad is we didn't have Stormy Liberal. We had the horse inside of him. Or we would have had that pick 5 with Bargo. I forget what it paid. It was like $250,000.
Well, because Caledonia Road, I know, was like the first leg, and that one was 12, and then Stormy Liberal was like 25, and then Bar Gold was like 60. It was just it was banger after banger.
It was an insane day. We had all the winners, but we didn't know how to play it right. We didn't know how to say, okay, we're at 55,000. Let's take 25, 30 of it right now and fire it for these next few races that we like. And if it blows up, we'll take out 25,000 and go home.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We didn't do that. We bet 1,000 here, 1,000 there, 700. You know what I'm saying? We did our minimums, which we never should have done. And had we done it a different way, I'm not saying we wouldn't won the tournament. Nissan Gabe won the tournament. Congratulations to them. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying we should have had a much higher total considering the handicapping firepower. And so listen, you want to be a good handicapper. If you're not picking winners, strategy doesn't matter, right? The horses will lose. What does it matter if you did it perfectly? But if you can get some good handicapping done and then combine that with making the right bets time after time, that's how you can get good in these tournaments.
So what led you to jump from something, going from that like $50 player to something bigger like that? Like after that, did you realize you were doing it wrong, or did you now have enough money that you're like, oh, I can now fire $1,000. It doesn't hurt as bad?
Once I was in this contest in 2017, then we were in the we were in the NHC because I think we came in top 10, so we won an NHC seat. When they announced they had on the night before the NHC starts, which was Thursday, everybody come down to the room where they have the contest, and we're gonna explain the rules. They went and they explained the rules, and they said, would everybody who's the first time participant in the NHC please stand up? We want to give you a round of applause. And I almost cried. I was so proud that I was in the NHC that I almost cried. Like got a little weepy. And after that, I just couldn't go back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could not be the Breeders' Cup betting challenge, and I could, I dedicated myself to be in these big tournaments because they're just so unbelievably exciting.
Yeah.
To win these things, it's a dream of mine. I haven't done it yet. I haven't won the NHC or the Breeders' Cup. The Kentucky Derby betting challenge is a good one. Definitely, something that I had dreamed about winning, and really, really excited that I did win it. So, but the Preakness tournaments, 12 days away.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing I love about this. It's always giving me something to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like one of the things that I think we get frustrated with, like on the big days, and maybe why you're yelling at your TV about the coverage as well, is like, talk about the fact that we are playing these tournaments tomorrow, and like there is this other stuff going on. It is just so exciting. But yeah, I mean, I want to kind of like touch on like what Nick was saying and like what you were saying, Ed, as far as like that scale. Because I think that is something that with certain players of like, getting into the Breeders' Cup betting challenge, being able to kind of take that step from I'm used to betting 50 a day to now I'm betting a couple hundred to now I could be in a position where, you know, I have to push $10,000. Like, is there something that you can kind of offer as far as like that scalability, or where people kind of know they can kind of move into that next step?
You know, my friend is a tournament player, Dan Edwards. He told me, you know, he always tells his son who also plays, just act like it's not money. Just act like they're numbers. That takes away the pain. You know, I'm not betting $10,000. I'm betting 10,000 points. Mm-hmm. It's going to take X number of points to win this thing, and I'm just betting points. I don't really think about it that much. You know, I you know, to me, you know, your different tournaments have different things, but when you're talking Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge or the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, you want to try to win it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with coming in fifth in either one of these tournaments, right? The guy that came in fifth yesterday, right? They just put a lot of money in their bank, so that's fine. But you know, you got to try to want to win it. And you know, your position dictates, you know, the bets that you're going to make. I'm not against it. If you're sitting at 48,000, whatever it is, maybe you bet a couple of thousand to get the 70, and then you walk home with your 45. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Yep. You don't have to fire all in every time. The math doesn't, you know, it doesn't always make sense, especially in the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge, where, you know, not hitting the board is, you know, it's very high in an 18-hole field. There's 15 of them at the board, you know. But I think you got to take your mind away from that and just say, you know, just read the rules. These are the rules of the tournament. This is what it needs to be, how it needs to be bet. These are the bets I have to make. And these are the type of totals, you know, that win. And the Breeders' Cup has been around so many times, you can see, you know, roughly, it's a 20 bag, 150, 170,000, 7,500. That's what it's going to take. And, you know, if you're making $50 bets, it's going to be tough to get to 150,000.
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah, for sure.
So I think that you just got to say, hey, you know, this isn't real money. This is monopoly money, and you know, and if it's not, and you're like, okay, I got myself up to 20,000, and that's really what I anticipated that I would do in this tournament. Well, great, make yourself happy. You know, don't risk the money. Take it and go home. You know, and go home. You know, but for me, I just kind of have an attitude like, you know, I'm in these things to try and win them. I'm going to keep trying to win them, and sure, I have a lot of all-in bets that, you know, the horses run last. You know, it's doing enough. You know, this is going to happen. You know, and then I just say, well, yeah, there's another tournament next Saturday, and I go out and take my wife out to dinner or whatever. And that's it. We move on. You know, one of the great lines, guys, I'm sure you know, is a horse player told me when I was young. Turn the page. That's it. The eighth. We lost the eighth. Now this is the ninth race. So let's go look at the ninth. Forget it. All right. The jockey should have gone inside. He went outside. Oh, we lost by a nose. Whatever it is, I should have done this. I should have done that. It's over. We move on to the next one. Yeah.
I mean, that's I think that's a perfect way to end it. I think just like right on that. But I think that's a skill within itself. And same thing that can translate into handicapping, or as you're watching races, right? Like, they're never going to run that same race again. It's now watching it and trying to gain that information from what you can do going forward. You can't just dwell on the fact that, you know, you had a bad trip. It's like, are you going to bet that bad trip back or not? That's what you really need to be asking, because you can't press rewind. You can only go forward. You need to decide what that means. But honestly, I think this conversation was awesome. Nick, is there anything else that you want to?
I mean, other than we met at the NHC, and I walked up and started talking to you. Now, like, having talked to you now for an hour, I'm like, we talked for like 30 seconds, and knowing that you were sick, I'm like, okay, now I understand why you were just like, all right, get out of here, weirdo. So I appreciate the time to talk with us, because
probably the friendliest guy.
Yeah.
I was in such bad shape that whole week. I mean, I got a little better towards Saturday, but I just was not myself.
Yeah, so. No worries. No, it's perfectly fine. I walked over on Thursday, and there's some guy in your seat, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna go talk to him. He's like, oh no, I'm not him. He's upstairs. I'm like, oh, okay. So I put my head down. I'm like, I guess I'll come back next time and try it again.
Yeah, you definitely should. Definitely come and see me.
Absolutely.
I'm not qualified yet, but I'll be trying.
You and me both. I'll get there too. Let's hope.
I mean, you had the option, right? You had the option.
Yeah, but you always take me stuff.
God, if you would take the NHC, we would have ended this call immediately.
Player at heart, guys.
Okay. Yes.
that would have been a story, though. I think that would have been a first timer that somebody was like, actually, you know what? I won. I have the option. I'm gonna go ahead and save that. You know? Yeah. So we understand.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You'll be there for sure.
Good. Hopefully I'll see all you guys there.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. And I'll send you this. Really appreciate it. We'll put it out for everybody to listen. I'm really excited for people to hear this. I think they're gonna have fun with it. They're gonna learn. It's gonna be super cool. So thank you.
That's great. Appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
We'll see you on the leaderboard.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Hope that audio doesn't suck.